Hey, David. That's quite a mural you've got behind you.
Is it still hoodie weather out there in Minnesota?
Uh, Yesterday, at the moment it is.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yesterday it was 85 and incredibly humid, and today it's 60. So if you don't like the weather in Minnesota, just wait a day.
Mm, pretty much the same here too. Finally starting to get warm somewhat consistently the last few days, so kind of welcoming that.
We had um we had a good 3 weeks with like almost no rain, and then now the last like week we've had rain every day. My yard looks like a jungle, so I got to mow it tonight.
Keeps you busy.
Brian, were you commenting on my mural?
No, David's got a big shadow man on his wall.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, if you look over to the side.
Oh,
There you go.
wow. Dang.
That's dedication.
Yeah,
Huh. Yeah,
Okay.
since I'm in Minnesota, in the only county with no natural lakes, I figured I needed to have a lake behind me.
Is that for real? I can't imagine that there are any parts of Minnesota with no lakes.
Yeah, well, I mean, no natural lakes,
Oh,
put it
okay.
that way.
Okay, I guess let's get started. So we're doing both IRC and video. I'll try to be good about taking notes in IRC so we have the meeting log. You've got the agenda. Everybody knows what's going on by now. So I guess let's get started. Um, Shoot, I had this. I'm using my daughter's computer to host the. Wait, that's too far. There we go. Okay. I have. Doesn't matter. Okay. All right. So this week is Milestone 1, which is happening pretty fast. I sent out I mean, one of our priorities was to get V2 removed by Milestone 1. So there's still time to do that. I've got the patches up. They're linked there. I'm sorry they're big, but that's sort of the way it goes. So there's one patch for Cinder, which isn't too big actually when you consider. Um, and with Cinder, the main thing is just we're removing the endpoint from the API. So all the classes and stuff are staying, and we will refactor that stuff later. But the main thing is to get the endpoint out of there. Then on the Cinder client side, there are two patches. One takes care of the shell and gets the shell to be V3 only. And the auto client thing that you can do that will pick the right client based on your endpoint only does V3 now. And then the other patch actually gets all the V2 classes out of there, out of the Cinder client. And so that's why it's a bigger patch. I'll probably, well, my plan is to go back after the two Cinder client patches are merged. I mean, one of the things I did was I just moved over the V2 shell and made it the shell base. So there's some overridden code that could be cleaned out. So I'll do that afterwards. I was just having well, anyway. So please look at those. If there's a problem with them, please go ahead and like indicate it, and I'll address it quickly. Okay, so that's now next week is the virtual mid-cycle. So be ready for that. So it's 1400 to 1600 next Wednesday. In here in Blue Jeans, we'll record it, the usual thing. If you've got topics, please put them on the mid-cycle Etherpad, which I should be typing this while I'm talking. Sorry. Announcements. All right. So first, let's remove V2. And then the other thing is, mid-cycle next week. Oops. The link. Okay, so last I looked, there weren't a lot of topics on the mid-cycle Etherpad. There are a few things we need to discuss, but we can, if we run out of stuff to talk about, there's always reviews that we can do live, which would be, we can do larger than extra small ones, which would be nice. And that's basically it. And I guess that's all I got to announce. The next thing is the Freenode situation, which went from being, annoying to being kind of dire overnight. All right, topic. Almost afraid to type that into the Freenode chat because of that article Luigi sent me. Okay, so basically there's stuff going on with Freenode. There are links on the agenda if you want to follow up. There's sort of two strains on the mailing list. One is, what should we do about communication in general, whether IRC is okay, whether Slack sucks, all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested, there's a link there. You can follow through that. The main thing is that there's been, I don't know. I went to the Open Dev meeting yesterday. The feeling there is that Freenode's gotten more unstable in the last couple of weeks. Their administrators are less hopeful about keeping jerks out of the channels, which I didn't realize they were doing, but was nice. And when jerks get into the channels, you kind of notice it. So that's been bad. So basically, the TC was asking for OpenStack to sort of let it know what our opinions are about what should be going on. I think Airship and Zool are already pro moving away from Freenode. So the TC, in addition to talking, the TC, okay. So the TC wants to get input from OpenStack about what we want to do. So it's asked for in that email I just linked to in the meeting channel. So there's all sorts of stuff. Thanks, Sumna. There's a lot of drama at Freenode. Anyway, what comes down to, I went to the Open Dev meeting for something else to talk about later, but of course this was discussed a lot. They are ready to move to OFTC and actually have been ready to move to OFTC since 2014, I think. So they've got all our channels registered, which is kind of nice, and they've got the tooling pretty much set up, and Jeremy already has patches up to make some minor changes to the bots to get them to interact. So what would be nice, so OFTC, thought I had a link here, but you can look it up. So it's like a open source kind of thing, which is pretty vague. But anyway, the key thing is it would be just a different IRC host. All our tooling will still work. So that's great. There's also this rival to Freenode that was set up called Libera or something. And so that's exists. Thanks, Walt. That's right. OFTC.net, I think. So you can look. It's basically similar to what OpenDev does in supplying tools for open source people to use. So anyway, they would like TC wants our input. The options were, let's see what's happening. Although apparently, what's in between the time G-Man sent that email saying, let's see what's happening, something has happened. So it looks like Jay's got to go to a meeting soon with the TC to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah, they've called an emergency meeting for 9:30 Central. So in 20 minutes here to talk about what we want to do. there have been a lot of people that in the mailing list have raised the question of, oh, great, this is an opportunity to change. IRC is not friendly for new users. It's, ancient and hard to get people involved with. I think my personal feeling, and if anybody disagrees, please let me know, is that, it does appear that the situation, my original input was let's wait and see what happens with Freenode. It quickly appears that the answer is not good things are happening, and I think it could be incredibly disruptive to us. Do we want to try to change our tooling to a different chat system at this time? I don't think that's the best choice. So, my plan, unless you guys have different input, is to go forward with, let's stick with IRC and let's move to OFTC, given that that's what Fungi has checked into in the past, and if people want to continue the discussion about changing our tooling, I think it's something that would need to happen at a more convenient boundary, like the end, after a release or something like that.
Yeah, great. I agree entirely. I mean, I would like to see this sort of settled so that we've moved by milestone 2. And can get stuff shaken out so that when milestone 3 approaches, everything's back to normal, more or less. Because the last thing we want is feature freeze, not being able to have meetings or communicate or whatever. Yeah, and so I agree entirely. So I think OFTC seems like the place to go. The tooling's set up, let's just do it. And then, I mean, if you follow through that, I made the big mistake of like trying to read up on this. So you wouldn't know it from the incoherent presentation I've given you. But I mean, the discussion starts going nuts about let's get rid of Garrett. It's a pain in the ass. And it's like, geez, we do not want to do any of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, when it turned that direction, I was like, all right, I'll let you guys discuss over here. And I mean, one of the few things that we do really well is have Garrett and do code reviews and stuff. So
yeah, right.
Are they talking about replacing Garrett with like something like GitHub or nothing at all?
No, I mean, people, I think that's sort of, my feeling about this is like Garrett's like democracy, so it's like the worst system except for all the others. And it's really, having used a bunch of these other things, it's like, what? I don't know. Yeah. So I think let's keep it focused. That's my recommendation. And I think, I think that the most focused thing would be just move, because with all these things, right, you never know what the heck's going to break, and something will. So I think that let's make the simplest change for now, and then those other discussions can happen later. Do we want to do like we can do because I learned how to use the vote system, although I've already forgotten. We could do a vote so that we can send Jay off to that meeting with the full endorsement of the Cinder team about what we would like to do. Or we can just do a voice vote. I mean, but the only options G-Man had asked for, or the TC had asked for, was wait and see what happens, or move to, or just move away from Freenode right now. So I would like to suggest we move away from Freenode right now, but also with the endorsement that we should just do the OFTC that the OpenDev recommends. And I think, I put a link there's a link in the agenda to the proposal from the OpenDev team about what Jeremy would like to do. And he also sent that follow-up with the readiness assessment about what he's got ready. So I think I should shut up and let other people talk.
I would like to make sure that we don't split some OpenStack channels into one network and the others into other. That is my biggest fear at this point. But as long as we are all on the same channel, it's fine. I mean, the same network is fine. And I agree with both of you that it could be best if we keep things for now on IRC, and then we have the different discussion.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tricky. I mean, I think the idea was to have like forwarding notes in the Freenode channel so that you know to go to the other place to do the discussion. But that
Well,
thing that
Yeah,
Luigi
so the
linked to me this morning, it looks like Freenode is like going around and stamping out all those forwarding notices. So
yeah,
there
there
may be,
that was what kind of started the okay, this is getting bad and we need to move, is that the channels they decided to move, they set up the forwards to forward back to Freenode. So what the TC was discussing over in our channel was the fact that we may need to have, a few stewards remain back in Freenode to, find any lost sheep and guide them in the right direction over a private chat or that kind of thing.
yeah, and I guess the thing for all of us is we'll have to pay attention to the mailing list over the next, while the transition's happening, just so everybody knows where to go. Because I don't, who knows what's going to happen. So yeah, so I guess pay attention to the mailing list if you can. And if I become aware of stuff, I'll send it out with Cinder in the topic, because you may not pay attention to the TC or the other parts, because the OpenStack mailing list, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. So I'll do that. And Jay, you can keep me apprised too. Yeah. So I mean,
Yep.
the transition's going to be a little weird, I guess. Do we want to take a formal vote, or should we just say our recommendation is option 2, move away from Freenode right away, with an added recommendation that we do what Jeremy wants and go to OFTC? Or we could do a vote if we want in channel. I guess we should do that.
well,
Or, okay, let me,
OFTC makes sense. I mean, it's been the home for a number of open source projects for a lot of years.
yeah, I think that was Jeremy's recommendation, and we've got the channels registered, and he's got the tooling mostly working. So that
Keep
would
in
be
mind, you're going to have to go register your nicknames and that stuff, so you don't end up with that weird issues from that. But
right. Okay.
I don't really care as long as, like Gorka said, all of OpenStack is moving and not
Yeah.
just us or half of or subset of, But we can't control what other people do. But if the TC says, hey, we're all going this way, we should all join, then if they don't follow, then do they not want to be part of OpenStack? That's not our problem, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Having said that, I know how to do the voting stuff. I do not. I had notes somewhere. Okay. So let's, so in the IRC channel, so the options are going to be, this is weird. Okay. So I think option A is sorry. Okay, and then we're going to have option C is the TC. So, okay, so option A will be, they asked for 2 things, but we're going to vote on 3 things. Okay, so A will be we wait B will be move right away, and C is we want to move right away, but we also recommend the OFTC thing. Vote. Start vote. Sorry. Okay. Is everybody clear on what we're doing? So we're voting, pick A, B, or C. A is wait, B is move, C is move plus OFTC. Sorry this is taking so long, but I guess it's kind of important.
And you have to enable the voting or something? Oh, you already did. Yep.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's happening in.
Yep.
Okay.
I missed that. Sorry.
That's okay. So we got 16 people showing up in video. One of those is the Etherpad, though. All right, so let's. So far we've got 10 votes. And it looks like we got 15 people, so wait another minute or two. I guess Eric had a good recommendation. I guess in the meantime, you could go to OFTC and register your nick, just so somebody else doesn't grab it.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's pointed this out, but one of the risks moving to a new IRC network is there's a window where you really got to keep an eye out for people impersonating other people if somebody's trying to do something sketchy.
Yeah.
So don't agree to anything super important unless you really know who you're talking to for a little while.
Right. So if you see me in there saying we need to remove the V3 API, that's not me. So we need V3. I am very much in favor of removing V2. So please review those. All right. Looks like I think that's been. All right. Wait 30 more seconds because I said I would close voting in 2 minutes. $25 after the hour. Okay, that is. Okay, I'll end. How do I end the voting? I think it's end vote. Okay. Okay, so Jay, it's unanimous that we recommend from the Cinder team anyway, moving immediately and to OFTC, where Jeremy's got the tooling set up. So cool. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next topic. So stable branch updates.
Guys, I'll take that forward here in a few minutes.
Oh yeah, and I guess I should.
Yeah.
I'll put something in that. And I'm sorry. There's an Etherpad that G-Man's got. I think there's a. All right, sorry. Go ahead, Rajat. So Rajat, go ahead and link your Etherpad in there for the stable releases June.
On IRC, you mean, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Just so we got a record.
Okay, so Train has gone extended maintenance, so we won't be releasing that. And the last Usuri and Victoria release were done in March, in the first or second week of March. So I was planning to do another stable release. I'm not sure. I haven't checked deeply like which all patches are critical and need to be in the release. So if anyone has patches, like it's not mandatory to do the release if there aren't any important patches. But I've created an Etherpad if anyone wants to do it since they are release critical. Uh, Also added that for the release. So July 2nd deadline, and that's it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so we don't have to release, but we can. Cinderlib we do have to release. And I put an Etherpad together so that we can start organizing that, because it's a month away basically, but that will come up pretty fast. There's not too many outstanding patches in Cinderlib, but there's the main one is to transition master to Wallaby development, I think. Anyway, if you look on the pad, there's something new. It's mainly a thing for Gorka because he's the Cinderlib guru. But of course, all Cinder cores are also Cinderlib cores, so we do need to take care of that. Okay, any questions about or comments about the releases? And then just a reminder, Train went to EM mode we had a final release maybe 2 weeks ago, and then it went to EM mode. So what that means is that we support it in the sense that we will backport stuff to it, but we don't release from that branch anymore. So none of the Train branches for any of the Cinder deliverables are going to be released from anymore. All right, so if you have any comments, so use the Etherpad to indicate stuff that needs to go back to Usuri. We need to get that in motion so that can happen. So if there are patches that you do want to be included in the next stable release, please put a note on the Etherpad so that we're aware of it and start doing stuff. Okay, great. Thanks, Rajat. Anything else about stable branches?
We just upgraded to Train a couple months ago,
Oh,
so we're probably going to be on it for a while.
Just in time. And then that reminds me, I do want to do I guess we should coordinate this. Well, I do want to do a release from what's the RBD iSCSI client, just to make sure all the tooling is set up correctly. But I wanted to check to make sure doing that doesn't disrupt anything that's currently using iSCSI client. I guess it shouldn't. I guess sorry, this is sort of a note to self. I want to make sure, I believe everything's been merged so that we do have CI on Cinder, on the Ceph iSCSI. Let me make sure that's the case, so I'll take an action item.
Okay. Yeah, there were a lot of patches that had to land to get the whole CI system.
I think
from
they did. I went to the QA meeting like 2 weeks ago and asked them to look at stuff. So let me follow up on that.
Okay.
So I'll make sure we've got the CI going, and then we'll cut the release.
Okay.
Sorry, Ross. Okay, right, so we'll make sure the CI is running, then we'll cut the release to make sure the OpenStack tooling is correct on that, and then I believe, yeah, right, and then so once that release happens, the CI job should pick up the release, and we'll see if everything's working right. So that would be good. Okay. Anything else about stable branches? Releases? Okay, let me get. This is a quick one, so I just want to follow up on. We had a quick discussion last week about what to do about the V2 API reference. So the question was mostly, do we just remove it since we're removing block storage V2 support? What makes it tricky is that the API reference isn't branched the way the regular docs are, so there's just one API reference. So basically, their recommendation at the OpenDev meeting yesterday was that we should continue to publish basically this. If we want there to be a V2 API ref at all, we need to continue to publish it at a master. So that would mean not removing the V2 API reference. But what we could do is, sorry, I'm trying to talk in time. What we could do is just, right now there's just a note for the V2 reference that says it's deprecated. What we would do is enhance that note to say it's removed, and that if you're still using V2, you should use V3.0. And one thing about all the tests that I just migrated over in the Cinder client patch, the old V2 tests mostly came over unmodified to V3, except that they used the fake client that specifically asked for the V3.0. And all those tests passed without me monkeying with them. So that pretty much gives us a good indication that V3.0 is pretty much the same as V2. So we can put a note on there. So I guess that's, so the options we've got, sorry, the reason I brought this up, we can either remove the V2 API reference like they did when they removed Glance V1 and just put a note saying, if you really want to know about this, you can go generate the docs yourself. Or the other option is we can keep the V2 docs there so that, the V2 API reference there in case people need it, and just put in a bigger note on it saying that it's been removed during Xena development, and that you really should migrate to using V3.0, which has been available for a really long time. So any feedback on those proposals?
Keeping it there with a note seems fine.
Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and do that. So the patch I've got up that removes the V2 API doesn't touch the API reference at all. And this was why, because I wasn't sure what we're going to do. So I'll put a follow-up patch, just putting the note on. Okay. Okay, great. All right, we got that's all then, thank you. All right, there's been a train-only backport proposed. Trying to copy into the wrong place, okay. And actually, is David still here? This is a really weird one. Oops, not one topic, sorry. Okay.
I
So,
can't hear you, David. He's in chat.
oh, okay. All right. So no, we can't hear you, David. All right. We may need to go ahead and do you have the OpenStack meeting alt channel open in IRC? So if you can join that IRC channel in Freenode, discuss it there. So David's got the patch up. It's a weird thing because this one driver is using mock in the production code, not the testing part. So it's infinidat. Anyway, you can see it if you go to that link. So it breaks under. Well, anyway, it's not a good thing to do in the first place, but it also breaks because mock, the third-party mock library that you need in Python 2 is not in requirements.txt because it shouldn't be. It's only in test requirements. So David's got to patch up. You can sort of paper this over in Python 3 because mock is part of unit test, which is in the standard library. So it's always available even without installing a requirement. So my concern with David's fix is that it will work with Python 3 seamlessly, but it doesn't solve the problem in Python 2. So I guess the question is, yeah.
Why do we even care about Python 2 now?
Well, see, this isn't Train, so Train still supports Python 2. So I don't know. I mean, so, right. So David doesn't have, so ideally that code needs to change. I've got to look up who the Infinidat maintainers are. So we should be using some type, so I think there's a comment in the code that they need some kind of object to be passed. And so they just create a mock object and pass it. Now what?
So I was getting the last time we talked about this, I was getting at what I think the fix is, which is maybe not that much harder to just fix it the real way instead of trying to sort out mock. But if I understood what they're doing correctly, I think they can just create a temporary Cinder volume object and just not save it to the database and get what they want, unless I'm missing something about what they're doing with this.
Yeah, that was my impression too, was that
it's not that bad of a bug fix as long as, you know, if somebody from Infinidat is going to help make sure this actually works, we should probably just fix it for real instead of trying to sort this out with mock.
Okay, so David says so I got a couple of things. So one thing, so David's fix that he's posted, we'll fix this in Python 3 because it will import mock out of unit test. Yeah, I mean, my objection on the patch is that I don't like to see a fix that's only for Python 3 since we're supposed to support Python 2, but I'm open to other opinions about what to do. So yeah, I guess what I had suggested, so I've got a comment on the patch. I mean, it looks like if we want, with David's fix, we should probably also change setup.cfg so that if you install the Infinidat driver, you also install mock. So then if you're running on Python 2, you will actually have everything there.
And I really don't think that part's going to matter too much for people running train with this driver. I mean, if it was a bunch of people doing new deployments, then maybe, but that's the technically correct way to do it, but I'm not sure if it really matters.
Right. Yeah, I just don't know. And the other thing is we're not releasing from train anyway. So yeah, so Toski asks if I can send an email out asking Infinidat people. But
Do they have a CI that works?
so maybe they will, they haven't been paying attention to the bug, as far as I know, though.
Yeah, but this isn't create volume from snapshot, right? If they have a CI that works, we can just fix it ourselves and see what it does.
Right.
That's why we have these CI systems.
Okay. So I think what David would like is just would like to get this thing out of his life and know that the thing is working, right? So
Well, to be clear too, what exactly is it in the way of? Is it that the driver isn't working, or is it the thing about config generation? Like, what's the actual issue for somebody?
yeah, I don't know. David had mentioned the config generation, but
Because if it's just a config generator, we can probably work around that without even fixing it.
I guess the config generator tries to load the class, can't find the module, and craps out.
Oh, okay, I see what he's doing now.
So is everyone following along on the IRC discussion? Right,
I mean,
David says,
I'm inclined to just exclude it from the config generator until the driver's fixed, because that might be helpful for what David's trying to do.
maybe that's the best thing then. Because we don't want to keep you blocked. Because I guess there. Okay. So David, you're not actually working with the Infinidat driver or anything. Oh, okay. All right. Then, all right. I see. Okay, sorry. I thought you had a customer or something who had this thing. Okay. All right. So why don't let's try, I guess I should be typing this also, but I think let's try to do this. Let's exclude it from, right? So basically the driver's doing an improper thing. It's breaking the config generator. Let's go ahead and exclude it from the config generator, and then that should unblock you. And then in the meantime, we can follow up on fixing this, I think along the lines of what Eric had suggested, but somebody else will fix this because you said you don't have time for this.
So I think it's okay to merge this patch that is in train, and then we remove the use of mock in master, like Eric suggested,
Okay.
with a volume version object that isn't safe.
So Gorky, you devised, instead of trying to mess around with the config validator, just go ahead and merge this patch.
Yep. I think we do similar things, not with mock, but with other libraries that are different between Python 2 and 3. We have the same structure of try except.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my objection was just it's guaranteed to, well, it's like most likely would fail in if you run this in Python 2 because mock won't be available in production. But then the solution is just install mock, right?
but the thing is that it isn't breaking it any more than it was already broken.
Right. Well, that's true.
Because the import mock is already there. So this is just fixing it for Python 3.
Okay. All right. I'm easily swayed. Okay. Then let's do this. All right. Then David, you don't have to mess around with trying to exclude this thing because who knows if that's going to be easy or hard. Okay. So then let's agree. So I will withdraw my, let me type this in the channel. All right. Of what we said.
Do we have a gate job that runs gen config in general?
I don't think we do.
We probably should run it in like the PEP8 job or somewhere.
Yeah. All right. So then three things. All right. So here's a summary. So we got three things. One. Okay. David's. And then three. I guess. All right. So I'll have to see exactly what the. Because I know I've run the config generator in master, but I guess that's in Python 3, so it wouldn't come across. No, should have broken. Well, anyway, okay. So look into a job. Okay, sorry. So three things. So David's patch is acceptable and train on the theory that it fixes Pi 3 and doesn't break Pi 2 any more than it's already broken. So principle of least harm, that's cool. 2, we'll pursue the proper fix in master and then backport it. And then 3, we'll look into a job doing the config generator stuff that should have caught this already, and then maybe put that in the PEP3 check. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't think you can actually put it in the PEP8 job, but we can put it somewhere.
Okay. Or somewhere. Okay. All right. Any comments or? All right. And I think, do we have a link? Okay. So David put a link in the IRC to his OOO patch that's breaking because of this. Sophia put a link to the bug about it. And then there's a link also to the David's patch. So we should go ahead and review it. Or most specifically, I should, because I got to remove my -2. Okay, great. Any other comments or anything? Okay. All right, moving along. All right, Luigi noticed something he wants to bring to our attention. OSC support. All right, so there's a patch up that should support microversions in Python OpenStackClient.
So yeah, I think that does enable some microversion usage, but I'll channel what Alan was saying the last time we talked about this, which is that, yeah, that'll let you use a microversion, but if the commands that you want to use are missing from OpenStackClient, it doesn't really get you that far.
Right. Okay.
But it's still, useful for us to look at.
Okay. So maybe a step along the way. I mean, Toski just wanted us to make sure we were aware that it was there because we don't always pay attention to OpenStackClient. And so we can leave comments or, we can't approve it anyway, but we can leave comments on there. So that might be worth doing. And it looks like it's a step in the right direction.
Well, and it looks like if you follow that series of patches, he's actually got follow-ups that are adding commands too.
Okay.
For volume stuff.
All right. And yeah, okay. So that's good. So we should probably start paying attention to that so that we can give feedback that the command structure is suitably similar to how we expect people to want to interact with the client and see what happens. Okay, so we should And I put up a patch for the OpenStack client so that it will check. Currently, it had to check to make sure that the V1 client was available before it tried to do any V1 commands. And so I put a patch up that does a similar check for V2. So it will check to see if the Cinder client it's using supports V2 before it tries to do any V2 type stuff. So that's cool. And they were very good about merging that fast. So we can return the favor by looking at these. Okay, anything else about the OpenStack client?
I assume we'll talk about it at the mid-cycle again for our usual update.
Okay. Right, and remember, mid-cycle's next week, so it's coming up fast. Okay, open discussion. All right, there's some, what I noticed is Gorka is really good about working on stuff, but he's also very nice about not pushing it in our faces to say, hey, we should merge this. But there are a couple of patches that I had reviewed and then Gorka just rebased. But I think we should get some eyes on him fast so he doesn't have to waste a lot of time, doing merge conflicts. And this is doing the lock maintenance. This is a big one for operators because we leave a lot of locks around. Or to be more exact, the lock files, after the locks are no longer in use, the files are still there. So Gorka's got some patches cleaning that up. So please take a look at those. They look nice. I thought we had merged it, and I was looking recently, somebody was asking about a Cinder manage command. And I was looking at the docs and thinking, wait, the lock stuff isn't there. And now I know why, because we never merged it. So please take a look at those. We may need to have a mini festival of Gorka patches at some point, because they're not extra small, but they are extra good. Anyway, please look at those, and let's get those merged so we can get that done. And then Walt has a VMware driver issue during initialize connection. So yeah, Walt, go ahead.
Okay. So VMware is its own hypervisor as well as storage backend, effectively. And the VMware driver does a lot of very strange things due to this that other drivers really don't do. So one of the things about the VMware ecosystem is that in order to attach a volume to one of the VMs, you have to create a volume inside of a data store. That data store needs to be connected to the ESXi host and visible. And there's a limitation on the number of hosts that a particular data store can be connected to, which is 64 hosts. So we have far exceeded that limitation in multiple deployments of our clouds. But it basically boils down to this, is that during attachment time, when Nova wants to attach the volume to the VM, Cinder looks to make sure that the volume that exists inside that data store is connected to that ESXi host. So that way it can actually do the attach. The problem is when it's not, it relocates the volume on the fly to a data store that is connected to that host. And for small volumes, that it goes relatively quickly, but for 2 terabyte volumes that has to cross over the network, this is ridiculous. So the problem is that we get an RPC timeout during initialized connection because it's a call, not a cast, because initialized connection is supposed to return with all of the connection info so that way Nova can attach the volume. Well, in this case, VMware sits there for 2, 3, 4 hours relocating the damn volume to a data store that it can attach to. It's effectively, the way I think of it, as it's migrating a volume from one pool to another pool, effectively. But the VMware driver is written so poorly that it doesn't expose these pools. It just manages all of them, and it acts like one and aggregates them all together. So Cinder has no visibility into data stores whatsoever currently. And so the problem that I have is I don't know what to do about this, is because we just saw a problem yesterday when someone enabled a cluster that wasn't production ready yet. So of course, all of the data stores were not connected to all of the ESXi hosts. So we had a bunch of attach commands come in, and then that the attach failed because it spun forever. The RPC timeout happened, and they said, hey, let's try that again. And so we had like 10 of these all queued back up, and we had 10 relocate commands queued up in vCenter, and of course, all of them have to finish. And we can cancel. We got on a call with a VMware, and we tried to cancel all of them. They said, well, you can't cancel any of them. You have to wait for all of them to finish because you're going to have data loss. We're like, well, how are we going to get data loss because the volume isn't attached anymore? Well, the relocate command can fail, and then you would lose your volume, because we actually had a database volume for a customer that we could not lose for obvious reasons. I'm kind of stuck because it breaks the paradigm of what's supposed to happen during initialized connection. You're not supposed to be migrating volumes. You're not supposed to be doing these kinds of things. That's not the purpose of initialized connection, but yet we still have the problem. When I first started working on the VMware driver, trying to manage and maintain our deployments, I realized that data stores were effectively pools, but were not being exposed as pools. And so it's on my list of things to do. But even if we had that, we would still have this problem that volume needs to be migrated during initialized connection time. So I'm not really sure what to do here other than instead of doing a relocate, return back an error during initialized connection and then creating some new API to initiate the migration somehow and do that process. So this is also a similar problem that we have due to the other issue the limitation that we have in VMware is that data stores can only be attached to 64 hosts. We have some deployments that have over 130, 140 hosts. So we have split our vCenter up into what we call shards, but they're kind of like hidden availability zones, which exposes the same problem, is that since everything is in the same user-facing AZ, all the resources should be available to attach, but they're not because of this hidden thing that we've fixed with the VMware problem. So I'm kind of stuck and wanted some advice, and if anyone else had any ideas how to overcome this. It's not an easy one.
No, the thing is, right? I mean, the whole point of a volume is it's big, right? You want to store a lot of stuff in it. So
Yeah.
these kind of designs that are, expect you just be able to move it somewhere instantaneously, a little crazy. Wow.
Yes, it is crazy. And in looking at the driver, it sits and waits for that copy to complete before it returns to initialize connection. And I'm surprised that we even allowed this patch to land because it obviously, if you're looking at it, it's going to take a long time for large volumes. So it would never come back correctly. You're always going to get RPC timeouts. I mean, I ran through this to an extent with the backup problem that we had, which I've deployed my fix and it's working great. I just have to finish the unit test for upstream.
Okay.
But it's kind of the same problem where we have these long running RPC calls that there's no way for us to really fix because we're doing a lot of network copies that have to finish because of the back end is being not so nice and limitations on there. So I just don't know what to do about this one specifically.
We may need to talk about this next week after people have time to think about it a bit.
Okay.
Do we have any other drivers who deal with this kind of issue?
I don't think we do.
I don't think so either. I mean, and evidently other people that have deployed VMware haven't been using it in the way that we're using it in a very, very large deployment with very, very large volumes and real customers because they would have run into this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking of it right now, I think your suggestion of failing is probably the best one. And probably to prevent it from, well, we have to keep it backward compatible and all that. So I think probably having some kind of field in the volume type specific to that driver to disable the normal functionality could be best. And some kind of way to override it with admin metadata so that instead of creating a new API that could be a lot of work and it could probably not make any sense for any other driver, just the possibility of overriding the default from the volume type on the admin metadata so that when you actually want to make it migrate, you can, as an administrator, make it happen. I would think that's the only thing I can think of that solves both your problems.
So if we still allow it to do the migration during attach, we're right back to the RPC timeout problem.
Yeah, but the thing is about allowing it is basically for backward compatibility. I don't know if somebody is actually using it right now with the smaller volumes and it's working for them. So that's why I'm afraid to break them.
Okay, I see what you're saying. At least any change that we make with the driver to disallow it would be circumvented by the new option.
Yeah, and the option it's in the volume type that you can actually choose on,
Yeah, or a config option. That's fine either way. That would enable them to experience the same thing we're experiencing now, at least. Yeah. All right. So, well, if you can think about it, that would be great because I'm kind of stuck at this point. The shards issue is the same problem with respect to that because we implemented something strange that allows our driver to reject a particular connector that's being passed in because we know it's not going to attach, because we know the volume can't be seen by that ESXi host. And then in the volume API, we looked for that particular exception and then initiate the volume migration there. But then we run into other problems elsewhere with update attachment and from Nova side going, hey, why can't I see this volume yet? And Cinder's back there going, well, I'm migrating this volume, just wait, but Nova doesn't know anything about it. And so there's a lot of disconnect going on there too.
Yeah,
it's a very, very similar problem.
The global fix, because I know customers have been having issues not with 2 or 3 hours initialized connection calls, but with 90 seconds, 2 minutes, things that go over the 60-second normal timeout. So the only solution I can think of that solves all the problems would be changing Nova and making the initialized connection actually support in some way kind of a callback, the mechanism Nova has for callbacks or asynchronous, whatever they call it, and to support it so that timeouts would be relevant because they would get an asynchronous call from Cinder. But that probably it's a big chunk of work. Mm-hmm. So probably not a short-term solution for the problem.
How many other drivers or customers have you guys seen that are hitting into, even the 60-second RPC timeout problem with this?
I've seen a bunch, as in more than 5 have reached me. Okay. But usually we just have to change the RPC timeouts and we say, hey, it's the vendor's array that it's too slow or whatever. And sometimes this happens, for example, if an array is set up to do nightly maintenance operations, and they are doing it, everything else is going slower. So, yeah.
I see. So it kind of sounds like the callback is something that would be useful.
Yes.
It's just a matter of, how much work is it going to need to be to do that, and how are we going to initiate that callback from Cinder side, knowing that Cinder's going to have to sit there and pull the driver until it's done, or something like that.
Well, the good thing is that if we change or if we add a microversion, we do some other change or whatever, the driver, the manager would not need to pull the driver. The driver would still take as long as it takes. The initialized connection at the driver level would take a long time. We just wouldn't make the caller wait for it to complete. We would return and say, done, it's on its way. You will get your asynchronous call whenever it happens, and when the driver finishes, the Cinder volume manager could say, oh, I have to make an asynchronous call, let me make it.
Okay, that's basically what I did with the backup, is that if the microversion was such and such, then I do an RPC callback instead of just returning the value, because I don't know when I'm going to get the return call back from the driver. So, okay. So the changes on the Cinder side should be fairly minimal and shouldn't affect any of the drivers in that case.
Yeah, it shouldn't affect the drivers. The drivers would not see any difference. Most of the work would be done on Nova, which is more painful, probably, because of the different flows they have. Its migration is different than normal attach and all that.
Yeah, because this is altering and kind of putting a pause on the entire attachment procedure. And I don't know what kind of other effects that's going to have on the rest of Nova if it has to stop something in the middle. All right, well, I'll talk with my Nova guys and see what they think and have them look at it, because the coworker that I have, we're trying to figure out some solution in any way for this. And There's two scenarios that I have that basically result in the same kind of thing. One is a call into Cinder API's migration, And another, which is the one that I raised here, is the driver internally is migrating the volume to another data store. And in the case where we're doing the API call, what we were thinking of doing, just having Cinder return back a new kind of error that Nova looks for specifically, and then calls Cinder's migrate manually instead of having Cinder itself call migrate, which has the RPC problems that we're running into. But this would solve both of those situations, because Nova would be aware that, hey, initialized connection now can possibly not return immediately, and then I need to do this other process. And okay,
Yeah.
I'll see if I can ping those guys and see what they think about that, because if this is going to be something helpful to the community, then maybe we can work on the Nova side and get that up, and I'll do the Cinder side and go from there.
Yeah, that could be great, because I think I brought up internally at some point increasing the timeout, seeing that in some cases we get to 90 to a higher timeout.
Yeah, and at some point the timeouts are ridiculous to keep increasing because something else is wrong.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time to let me throw this by you.
Yep. No problem.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna close the meeting. Thanks for attending. I will not close the meeting. I mean, stop the recording. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, you can stop the recording. Sorry for